The biggest mistake most people make when trying to manifest something is believing that wanting it badly enough is the key to getting it. That belief is what keeps people stuck, frustrated, and exhausted. Wanting, no matter how desperate or sincere, doesn't create. What it actually does is reinforce lack. The more someone wants something, the more they are admitting to themselves and the world that they don't have it. And when the focus is on not having, life keeps mirroring back more of that not having. This is the trap so many people fall into without even realizing it. They keep trying harder, visualizing longer, repeating affirmations with more intensity, thinking that if they just want it enough it will finally show up. But that's not how this works. Manifestation doesn't respond to intensity, it responds to identity. It doesn't react to how badly something is desired, it reflects back who a person believes they are. The truth is, what someone experiences in their outer life is nothing more than a mirror of their inner state. And inner state doesn't mean positive thinking or surface-level affirmations. It means the deep, subconscious identity a person holds about themselves. That identity is made up of assumptions, beliefs, and persistent feelings. It's the quiet background story always playing behind the scenes. And here's the thing. Life will keep matching that story until it's rewritten. If someone believes they're not good enough, not lovable, not worthy of success, no amount of effort will override that identity, unless it's changed from the inside out. So the question isn't, how do I get what I want? The real question is, who am I being right now? And does that version of me match the life I'm trying to create? When that question is answered honestly, everything starts to shift. Because the game isn't about chasing outcomes. It's about becoming the version of you who would naturally have those outcomes. It's not about forcing the external world to change. It's about changing your internal state so the external world has no choice but to respond. The version of you who already has the love, the peace, the success, the freedom, that version isn't hoping or wishing or waiting. That version is already living it, already feeling it, already being it. And when you tap into that version, even if only for moments each day, reality begins to bend around you. That's the power of being over-wanting. So, if it feels like things haven't been working, if you've been trying every technique and getting nowhere, consider this. Maybe it's not that you've been doing it wrong, but that you've been doing it from the wrong identity. Stop chasing and start becoming. Stop asking when it will happen, and start asking who you are being right now. That's where the shift happens. That's where real manifestation begins. Most people never realize that what's showing up in their life has less to do with the world and everything to do with how they see themselves. That's what self-concept really is. It's not about arrogance or surface-level confidence. It's the deep-rooted identity someone carries within, usually without even realizing it. It's the silent blueprint the world keeps following. So when someone keeps experiencing the same kind of relationships, the same financial blocks, the same self-sabotage or emotional patterns, it's not because they are unlucky or cursed or doing something wrong. It's because their self-concept hasn't changed yet. The outer world is always a mirror of the inner world, and until that mirror reflects something different, the same loops keep playing out. When you look at your life and it feels stuck or repetitive or just empty, the question isn't, why is this happening to me? The real question is, what do I believe about myself that keeps creating this same reality? Because at the core, manifestation isn't about getting what you want. It's about getting who you are. And who you are is shaped by what you consistently believe, think, feel, and expect. If deep down, someone sees themselves as not worthy, not enough, not chosen, then no technique or visualization is going to stick. It might bring temporary results, but the old identity will always pull everything back to the same baseline until it's addressed directly. So instead of trying to force manifestations to come, what actually works is shifting into a new self-concept, one that aligns with the life you want. Ask yourself who you would be if everything in your life was already working, if the success was already yours, if the peace was already normal, if the love you wanted was already secure. What kind of person would you be? What would you feel about yourself on a regular basis? What kind of thoughts would run through your mind? What kind of things would you no longer tolerate? Because when you start thinking like that person and feeling like that person, you actually begin to become that person. And once that shift happens internally, the external world has no choice but to follow. The truth is, everything begins and ends with the story you tell yourself about yourself. And most of the time, that story has been running unconsciously for years, shaped by childhood, past experiences, and assumptions picked up along the way. But the moment you become aware of it, you get the power to rewrite it. And that's where the real magic happens. Not in chasing a result, but in becoming a version of yourself that the old reality no longer fits. When that becomes your focus, you stop fighting with your circumstances and start changing the author of the script. And when the author changes, so does the story, every single time. One of the biggest misconceptions in manifestation is that affirmations alone are enough. People repeat phrases like, "I am loved," "I am wealthy," or "I am chosen" 100 times a day and then wonder why nothing really shifts. The truth is, affirmations aren't magic. Words without feeling are just noise. You could repeat an affirmation for a year straight, but if it doesn't touch your inner state, if it doesn't shift something inside of you, it won't create anything new. This is the part so many people miss. They assume the repetition is what impresses the subconscious, but what really does it is the feeling behind the words. That's why you can say, "I am confident," but if you still carry shame, doubt, or insecurity inside, your life will keep reflecting that inner contradiction. This is why understanding the role of feeling is everything. Feeling is the actual power source behind manifestation. It's what impresses the subconscious mind. It's what activates the new state of being. When you ask yourself, "How would I feel if this were true?" and really sit with that question, your mind starts to generate subtle emotional shifts. And those shifts are gold. That tiny spark of relief, joy, gratitude, or peace, that's what changes things. So instead of trying to bulldoze your way into belief by saying empty affirmations on repeat, take a moment and slow down. Say it, then feel it, even if only a little bit, even if it's just for a moment. That moment of emotional alignment does more than hours of robotic repetition ever could. You don't need to force the feeling or fake it. All you need to do is invite it. When you affirm something, add the question, "How would I feel if this was already real?" Let your imagination give you a tiny glimpse of it. Maybe it shows you a mental image, a peaceful scene, a simple moment. Maybe it just gives you a small shift in posture, breath, or thought. That's enough. The goal isn't to feel amazing all day long. The goal is to practice feeling like the version of yourself who already has the life you want, even just in short bursts, until it becomes natural. And yes, consistency still matters. You're not trying to brainwash yourself. You're aligning with the truth of who you want to be. Affirmations are not meant to be desperate chants to make something show up. They're meant to support the identity you're stepping into. So use them like that. Use them to bring you back when your mind wanders. Use them to remind you who you've decided you are. And pair them with feeling, even just a soft emotional shift. Because when affirmations become a doorway to a new state of being, that's when they become powerful. That's when they actually work. Not because you said them perfectly, but because you felt them honestly. Most people underestimate the power of a mental diet because it sounds too simple to make a real difference. But the truth is, this is the part that actually does the heavy lifting. A mental diet isn't just about thinking positively or avoiding bad thoughts. It's about becoming aware of the conversations happening inside your mind all day long, the ones you've been having without even realizing it. Those quiet, repetitive thoughts are what build your self-concept. They shape your assumptions, they influence your emotions, and those emotions are what create the state you live in. So if your mental loop is filled with doubts, fears, worries, stories about being unworthy or left out or behind, those aren't just thoughts. They are the building blocks of your reality. A mental diet means paying attention, not forcing yourself to never think negatively, but noticing when your thoughts drift into a version of yourself you no longer want to be. And instead of arguing with those thoughts or spiraling into them, you gently redirect. You remind yourself of who you've decided you are now, not in a way that feels fake or forced, but with a sense of calm choice. I know that old thought. I've had it for years, but that's not who I am anymore. That kind of self-talk is powerful. It's soft, but it's firm. It doesn't panic, it remembers. Because the mind will try to go back to what's familiar. It'll bring up fears and doubts as a reflex, not as a truth. So your job isn't to fight those thoughts. It's to notice them and choose again. The more you do this, the more your inner world starts to stabilize. And once your inner world becomes stable in a new state, like feeling loved, secure, powerful, or chosen, your outer world starts reflecting that new stability back to you. But it happens through repetition. Not desperate, anxious repetition. Calm, gentle, consistent repetition of thought. This is why it's called a mental diet. It's not something you do once and forget. It's a way of thinking that becomes your new baseline. It's training your mind to think from your new identity until that identity becomes second nature. At first, it might feel tiring, like your thoughts are running wild and it's impossible to control them. But you're not trying to control every thought. You're just watching them, observing them without judgment, redirecting the ones that don't serve you, choosing to come back to who you're becoming again and again, as many times as it takes. That's the process. It's not glamorous, it's not dramatic, but it works. Over time, those small, daily mental shifts add up. They create new assumptions. They strengthen your self-concept. And those changes, though invisible at first, start showing up in your reality in ways that feel effortless. Because the mental diet isn't about force, it's about alignment. It's not about perfection, it's about persistence. Everything starts to shift when you realize you're not supposed to force life to change. You're not supposed to beg the mirror to reflect something new. You're supposed to become the version of you that the mirror has to reflect differently. This is the core truth that sets people free once it finally lands. You've never had to chase anything. You've only had to become the version of yourself who naturally experiences the life you want. The job isn't to make things happen. The job is to become the person to whom those things just happen. That shift alone takes all the pressure off and reminds you that this entire journey has always been about your inner world, not the outer world. Because the version of you who already has what you've been trying to manifest isn't waiting, isn't doubting, and definitely isn't obsessively checking for signs. That version feels grounded, certain, not because they forced belief, but because they practiced thinking and feeling like the person who already had it. That version doesn't just know it's possible, they live from the place where it's already done. That's the energy that manifests results, not because of a perfect script or a magical amount of affirmations or the right visualization, but because of alignment, because of consistency, because of identity. And the truth is, you already know what that version feels like. You've had moments, even tiny ones, where you imagined something and it felt real for a second. You felt peace, you felt joy, you felt like it was done. That's what you're building on. You don't have to feel that way all day long. You just return to it as often as you can. You check in with that version of you and ask, what would they be thinking right now? How would they respond to this situation? What would they assume is true? And little by little, your old identity starts to fall away. It doesn't need to be forced out. It dissolves naturally when it's no longer being fed. So let this be your reminder. You don't have to fight for your dream life. You just have to stop thinking like someone who doesn't have it. The techniques don't matter nearly as much as the state you live in. And the state you live in is built from the thoughts you keep thinking, the feelings you keep returning to, and the assumptions you hold without even trying. That's the real work. It's not about doing more. It's about being more. Being the version of you who no longer needs to check, doubt, or chase. Because that version already knows. If you felt something shift while listening to this, even a little, then it means you're ready. Not ready to try harder, but ready to finally let go of the chase and come home to the version of yourself who was always the key. And if this helped, share what clicked for you in the comments. Someone else might need to hear it too. I will meet you tomorrow with another video.